to Out of the Box with Christine, the podcast for conscious entrepreneurs. I am your host, Christine Blosdale. Yes, your very own podcast for passion and profits coach, as well as a #1 Amazon best-selling author and multi-million-dollar fundraising genius. Welcome aboard, my friend. It's going to be an amazing ride. I will be your tour guide on this epic adventure with our ultimate goal being transformation to our highest potential. And now, let's get out of the box. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Out of the Box with Christine. I am your host, Christine Blosdale, and I am very excited about today's show because the woman that I have as my very special guest today is one of my, well, you're one of my sheroes, Eleni. Your life story is so inspirational, and what you do for other women is so inspirational to me. I had to have you on Out of the Box with Christine, the podcast for conscious entrepreneurs, because you are the program manager for Success Works here in New South Wales and Australia. And the program that Eleni is in charge of helps so many women who maybe society has given up on, or society has thoughts on their worth and their value. And I'm just so grateful that you came on the show today with me. And we're going to share what you do with wonderful women that are getting a second chance at life. And so welcome to Out of the Box with Christine.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me and the opportunity to share this.
Well, I sort of gave a little bit of a hint to our listeners about what you do, but let's start with the program that you're doing right now, that you're working with women, Success Works. Can you please let our listeners know a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So the program Success Works is a program of Dress for Success Sydney. A lot of people have heard of Dress for Success and know it's probably for the clothing, which we have been doing for about 11 years, providing women who are trying to get back on their feet from all walks of life, who are trying to become financially independent, clothing them on the outside with beautiful clothes. The organisation has also supplied clothing to women as they exit correctional centres who may not have any clothing to leave with, rather than them coming home in their prison greens, as the colour is in New South Wales. And let me tell you, it happens a lot. So the clothing aspect is one thing that people know Dress for Success for, but we have an extensive career support program, which I like to frame it as clothing women from the inside with the tools, the confidence, the skills to help them believe in their own worth. So when they are putting themselves forward to try and get employment, they believe in the skills that they have and the strengths that they have to rise and shine out of the circumstances that they find themselves in. And the Success Works program is only quite new. It's the third year of a 3-year pilot that supports women with a criminal record to get back on their feet.
Wow. And as we know, well, some people don't know, when you come out of prison, you don't have a whole lot. You don't have a whole lot of support many times, correct?
A lot of people don't know of the support, and there is not a lot of specific support for women. And research has shown that only about 22% of the women who do exit prison, if their crime has led them to incarceration, aren't aware of the support services out there. And my opinion is that there needs to be a more coordinated effort of those support networks. And also for society, those networks will not work if the prejudice and discrimination and the misunderstandings of people with a criminal record exist amongst organisations, employers and society.
Right, because a sentence and incarceration can haunt anyone when they leave, but especially getting a job, getting housing, their children, right? It affects
Yeah.
their children and their ability to take care of their children. Um, Talk about, if you don't mind, what, because I know you know very well what it's like for a woman to go through the criminal justice system. Um, because it's also it's quite a wide net that catches a lot of people. Um, I'm one of these people that know, because I know the system, that number one, there's a lot of people that are in there that shouldn't be in there. They should not
Yeah.
be in such a heinous place.
Yeah.
But it captures quite a few people, doesn't it?
It does. And from BOSCA, which is the Bureau of Statistics, Crime and Research, and they show that about if you look at the reasons why someone should be sentenced to prison, there are 8 reasons, according to the law, that magistrates and judges should consider that, you know, if a crime ticks these boxes, someone should be incarcerated. For over 90% of the women that are incarcerated, point number C, one of the reasons that someone should be considered for incarceration is to protect the community from the offender. Yet from BOSCA's statistics, it shows that over 90% of women are not serious risk to the community. So there's over, let me get the statistic right, about 800 women in prison at any one time, and 300 are on remand waiting to be sentenced.
Whoa. Okay. Say that again. So they're not sentenced, but they're in prison.
Yep, they're in prison. And of the women that are sentenced to prison, the majority of sentencing is less than 6 and 12 months.
So how long are they there waiting to be sentenced?
It depends on the crime. It depends on the availability of magistrates. Throughout COVID last year, that impacted people that were waiting on remand. So here you have women who are sitting in prison waiting to be sentenced, probably separated from children, and over 70% of women are mothers. So there's a whole lot of I don't know. I don't like to call it a system, because it doesn't even seem like anything is logical about what is happening to the majority of women in prison.
And then, so they're waiting to be sentenced. So this could be months that they're
Yes,
waiting, oh my, okay.
could be months.
And so in the meantime, if they're a single parent, which, let's be honest, there's quite a few single mothers, I would believe there's a lot of single mums who are financially trying to make ends meet and all of that. So while they're waiting, is there any consideration for the children, or is it just like, this person's a danger to society, we need to put this woman in jail until we figure out how to sentence, and then go through the whole process?
Yeah, sometimes the children, if the woman is fortunate to have family around, looked after family, but if not, then they go into foster homes.
Oh my God. Okay. Yes.
And you have a number of women, particularly Indigenous women, who still lose their children. I can't tell you how many. I'm not Indigenous, so I don't want to speak on their behalf, but I've spoken to Indigenous women who are involved in organisations to try and get babies back to their mums. So it's a minefield that we don't consider, because we're not in that world. And, you know, it's not something that you put on your bucket list to experience this legal system.
Right.
That's for sure. Life happens. And, you know, and if we don't, a lot of people don't see the trauma and life experiences that a woman has had before she comes into contact with the system, and the research again shows that over 70% of women who do end up with a criminal record have a history of domestic violence, trauma, mental illness, and then they make a poor decision, which can, you know, either cause a cycle of behaviour where it's hard to break out of, or you make one mistake and then you are branded with a criminal record.
Oh, exactly. And there's very little, like you were saying, there's very little reflection on what got her to a particular point in life. So
No, yeah.
if the majority are suffering from domestic violence and abuse at the hand of their partner, boyfriend, husband, then that is not considered at all. Correct?
No, it's sometimes for the woman, if she doesn't have psychological support, and I like to use that term because it could be a counsellor, a psychologist, psychiatrist. And I found with the women I work, the ones that do have that support and are able to work through that process of, you know, their own trauma before experiencing the legal system, then it's hard for them to what I call unlearn. And, you know, but you can see the change when someone has had that support and willing to put the effort in. But as far as society is concerned, and what I have found, people don't consider that pre-trauma and that the domestic violence. They just see the record.
And we're a society, we're quite a sick society, aren't we? We're a society that if someone is in prison, we assume that they've done something really bad,
Yeah,
and that they deserve, you know, the worst of the worst. They deserve, you know, to be suffering, and, you know, and in pain, and yet we don't take the time to understand how they got there. And
yeah,
I know because I've been studying this. I myself have not been through the system grinder, but I know in the United States, the statistics are alarming. It's actually so easy to get charged, to get put into prison. It's really easy for the system to do. It's
yeah,
not something, you're not, you know, somebody walking around with a mask on your face and a knife. It's, you know, all these different laws, all these different things. You don't even know how easy it is for someone to be incarcerated. And that
yeah,
is something that people really need to wake up to with our tax
yeah,
dollars, by the way. Yes.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And just understanding that life happens to all of us. And I remember I do have lived experience. I spent 11 months in prison. And again, it was something that I didn't plan. It wasn't, oh yeah, I really want to see what that feels like. Life happened. And it was when I was standing in the medication line so I was in one prison for about 6 to 8 weeks, which was Silverwater Women's Correctional Centre. And then I was moved to Dilwinia, which is it's South Windsor. And it was in the first week at Dilwinia, and it was frightening, especially being moved. You know, it's frightening being taken to one prison, but then you're taken somewhere else and you're not given any warning. And I was in the medication line waiting for my antidepressants, which I had been on for 7 years prior to any offending happening. And I must have had a really anxious look on my face, because one of the female officers came up and said, "Eleni, there is a fine line between blue and green. Any one of us could be on the other side of the fence." And that has not left me to this day. Every single time, and 7 years post-release, you're still faced with discrimination. You still read comments on social media where people say, "Oh, you've done the crime, you do the time, you know, you don't deserve anything better." Every time I read a comment like that, or I'm faced with a situation where the record has popped up a roadblock, I remember that quote. It could be any one of us. And to not define yourself by that label every single day takes strength.
It takes strength and it takes support. And
Yeah.
that's why I love the work that you do, because you're not someone who's like, whew, okay, I got done with that now. I just need to forget about it. I don't want to have anything to do with the system. You're actually reaching back and supporting women who are currently incarcerated and who pre-release, right? And
Yeah.
also when they are released. Can you talk about this? Well, when you were released, what sort of support did you have? Or were you just like, here's your bag and goodbye?
Well, you are given your plastic bag. Go, here's your bag,
That's
and goodbye.
a movie thing. I didn't know if they actually did that, but yeah, okay.
Even when you move from one part of a prison to another, or from one prison to another, you're not given warning, and you say, pack your bag, and it's literally a garbage bag with your prison issue clothing and your linen and everything, and you're told, there you go. But I was lucky in that I had family support, and my children were there to pick me up upon release, and I did have a home to come home to. I had a mortgage, which I wasn't sure if I would be sent to prison or not the day I was sentenced. So I had an instruction page on my kitchen bench. If I was not to come home, this real estate will handle getting someone into my apartment. This is what will happen to my internet connections, my mobile. So I just had a list, and it was really hard to do that because I didn't know what was going to happen.
Absolutely confronting, I would think.
Yeah, very
Absolutely.
confronting.
And because because you have been on the inside, I think you are someone you're someone who can share with our audience what it's like, because not only have you suffered, and I know a bit of your story, not only do you suffer prior, right, before you're there, emotional abuse, if a woman that's there, physical, emotional, sexual abuse, but then when they're there and you are confined, what are some other issues that women face once they're in there? I shudder to think about all of the challenges that one faces when incarcerated, but you can enlighten us on that subject.
That's a big subject as to how it probably impacts people differently. Some of the women that I met in there they were used to the revolving door that became their safe place. And that's sad in itself. I think as a society, what have we not done to support people and women when they come out so they feel safe? But the first night I was in Silverwater I was in like a cell that had 3 cameras, the lights on 24/7, one camera pointed to the toilet, the shower, and the mattress on the floor. Obviously because it was my first and only time incarcerated, and they may be concerned for self-harm. But I remember looking at the graffiti on the wall, and it was like reading women's stories. And I myself had a, misconception and prejudgment of anyone that had been incarcerated till I ended up there myself. And I was reading this graffiti, and I just thought, oh my gosh, these women's lives are just broken. They're just broken lives. And, who are we to judge? Who are we to judge? So I could start with a little bit of my background. So I'm hoping your listeners will be able to understand the thought pattern, if you like. Would that be all right?
Yes, yeah? Please.
So my history way before, even from my late teenage years, was of undiagnosed anxiety and depression that led to anorexia. Now, the anorexia had nothing to do with body image. I never weighed myself. I never dieted. But upbringing was quite strict. It was like my big fat Greek wedding. I'm the eldest of 4 children in a Greek family. And don't get me wrong, I love my parents, but this is just how I interpreted and process things. So every time as a, early, mid to late teens, I asked to do anything with friends, it was subjects closed, don't want to talk about it. And so I tried to do more at home to become the perfect daughter, the pleasing daughter. Maybe if I do enough, they'll love me more. And that's how I interpreted it, that I wasn't loved unless I did. So when I finished high school, we went to Greece for 6 months, and I'd never been to Greece, and it was beautiful to see where my parents were born. But I was sad because school was the only place I saw my friends. And so now I didn't have any means to see the friends that I'd grown up with for the last 6 years. And I just got a little bit sad. And if anyone knows some of the symptoms or early signs of any mental illness, it's change in sleeping patterns, change in eating patterns. It was never an intended diet. I just ate a bit less. And mum and dad were going, oh, what's wrong? Are you all right? You're not eating. And I went, oh, wow, you're listening to me now. So I thought if I started eating normally, that I wouldn't be able to speak and they wouldn't listen. So it grew into a fear of eating, not for what I ate, but a fear of losing what I interpreted as my parents now love me because they're listening to me. And then it turned into the full-blown, lost my period for 5 years, etc. I physically recovered from that, but fast forward to when I started seeing my forensic psychologist, which my lawyer suggested I see, to address the offending and what happened and what led to that. And I had a light bulb moment with her in one of our early sessions, and she said, what were your thoughts pre-anorexia, with all the excessive dieting and exercise? And I said, my answer to that was, if I don't do this, I will not be of value. And then she said, okay, fast forward to just before you offended. What were your thoughts? And I stopped and I went, if I don't do this, I will not be of value. And completely different circumstance, but that same unhelpful thought pattern. And I just went, why did I not get help decades before, instead of living with this thought pattern of people pleasing, of low self-worth, where I felt I had to do all the time, even if I wanted to say no, that I'm not worth it to anyone, unless I perform. And, that was the mental illness side. But I also experienced in the last 8 years of my 21-year marriage, a lot of control, which I didn't recognize as DV, a lot of, wall hitting and throwing things and putting down everything that I loved doing. Never had a girls' night out in the 21 years I was married. And again, felt that I was only worth housework and sex. And it was 6 weeks after a counselling session where my ex-husband confirmed those two thoughts that I had, that I offended. I was rock bottom. And, when I share my story, to a person, a woman, one-on-one, they go, oh man, that could have been me. That could have easily been me. So it was life, any one of us with the right circumstances and, hitting rock bottom, I don't know. It's very easy to happen.
Well, and especially if if you are already a people pleaser, right? Because and that happens in childhood, in the beginning of childhood, but then you're with a narcissist. You probably are also quite empathic as well, and caring and loving. And a narcissist, I've done studies on narcissists, I've done specials on narcissists, and especially there's different types, right? But the more extreme ones, it's about control.
Yeah.
And it's also about, they're vampires, they're energy vampires. So if they can get from you an emotional response,
Yeah.
either fear or terror or concern, worry, doubt, any of those things, then they're feeding upon that.
Yeah.
And they always seek out the ones that are the most empathic, and the ones that are the people pleasers, the ones that want to do good in the world. They want to help others. It's like, they're a target.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you from my research, and I've done three specials on a narcissist. And I actually interviewed, it was like my interview with a vampire, it was my interview with a master narcissist. And what he was saying too, he says, there is no help for my kind. He even said my kind, like, hey, and he said, there is no rehabilitation. We have no heart. We don't care if we break your heart.
Yeah.
And after producing those shows, I've had more comments and letters from women, mostly women, who've said, I thought I was crazy.
Yeah, you do. Yeah. And I was frightened. I didn't want to speak up and back to him. I was frightened.
And they're so good at lying, and they're
Yeah.
such great actors that you believe them. And because why would someone, why would someone lie about that? Or, why? But it's manipulation to the umpteenth degree.
Yeah.
And so many women have been the victim of that.
Yeah.
And they're either married, or their boyfriends, or it's mostly men who are the offenders, but there are women as well.
Yeah.
Or they have a parent who's a narcissist, which
Yeah.
is a whole,
Yeah.
So the thing is that what you've experienced, like you say, millions of other women have experienced that, and how close they could have been, or they have already fallen into that. That in that criminal justice system, we wouldn't even cover the fact that this is also, well, especially in the United States, it's a business.
Yeah.
It's a machine.
Yeah.
Because everyone along the way gets paid, right?
Yeah.
I mean, let's talk
Yeah.
about the business angle of it, because I don't know how much it is to incarcerate a woman here in Australia, but in the United States, and especially with private prisons, because that's the new
Yeah.
thing. These
Yeah.
corporations that, fill those beds up. You need more beds filled because they want more money coming in.
Yeah,
But
that's right.
talk about that if you can, that aspect.
Well, just remember I said that over 90% of women are not a serious threat to the community and they end up in prison, right? So that fills those beds, I would imagine. It costs, I don't know the exact number, but it's between $280 and $320 a day. I don't know the exact figure. I've read various figures to house somebody in prison. So that's, do the math.
And you're not staying at the, Four Seasons, and you're not eating, you're not eating like organic food or anything like that.
And I've had I see so many posts on prison saying, oh, you get, you're fed every day and you got your medical. And I just had to comment on something. I said, unless you've experienced this, please don't comment. You don't get any, well, where I was in New South Wales, there are some prisons that the buy up, which is like your weekly shopping list, some prisons have fresh produce, but the majority of New South Wales correctional centres, the only fresh food I got were apples or bananas when they were in season. Everything else was frozen, pre-prepared meals. I am gluten intolerant. I had to go through a medical assessment by the prison doctor to have a certificate to get gluten-free meals. When many of the meals came back, there was black mold on the bottom of the container and no cooked date or used by date on the container. So I would often show the officer, he said that, he would throw it out for me and try to get me another meal, but the kitchen was closed at, 3:30 in the afternoon. So you didn't get it. Now, I can't tell you the mental battle I had in those first few months for the anorexia thoughts not to creep back in. You're not worth it. You deserve this. You know, I had, and that was another light bulb moment at about 2.5 months in. I sat at the bottom of my cell having these thoughts of, you know, you could easily take your own life with these thoughts, and, you know, you deserve it. And I sat there and I went, wait on a minute. I've had 9 months of counselling with a forensic psych who helped me see thought patterns, and I started putting those tools into place before incarceration. So I got incarcerated and all the psychology stopped. So my rehabilitation occurred before prison.
Correct.
All right.
Correct.
Yep. And I thought, if I continue these thoughts, then I have learnt nothing. So that is, from that moment on, I vowed to do anything I could regarding mental illness, particularly eating disorders, and to support women who have ended up behind bars. Because then, what a waste.
And let's talk about that, because this is the part where your consciousness really kicked in, right? So so we've journeyed with you before incarceration. We've journeyed with you a bit inside, and so now what you're doing is you're helping women that are there, that are pre-release and also being released. And let our listeners know what you're doing for those women.
So the Success Works program, as I said, of Dress for Success Sydney, supports women with a criminal record. They don't necessarily have to have been incarcerated. They could have a community order. Some of them have ankle bracelets on, where they have to have their schedule, you know, given into corrective services a week in advance, so they know exactly where they are the week coming up. They might be women on a good behaviour bond, but they've still got a record. They could be women going through the drug court process, which is an alternative to incarceration. No matter what, they've got this black mark on their name that prevents them from getting employment, from getting housing, from getting car insurance, so many things. So the program builds those women's confidence up. We've got a number of workshops. They have my one-on-one support. And, you know, it's really lovely to hear the women. You could hear their apprehension when you first make that first phone call, or they first call you. You know, I'm trying to get a job, and, you know, I've got a criminal record, and, you know, I've been knocked back so many times, and I'm trying really hard. And then I could hear their fear. So I say, okay, I'm Eleni, I'm here to help you. I know exactly what it feels like because I've been through the same thing. And you hear the sigh, you literally hear the sigh, and they go, oh my God, it's so nice to talk to someone where you know you're not going to be judged and who understands what it feels like. And I thought, oh gosh, I wish we had some more employers that were like that because it is so scary. So part of what we do, as well as working with the women, is that we reach out to employers and we tell them about the program. We tell them that we work with women with a criminal record and the reasons why they should employ someone with a record, and to do their own risk assessment. If the offence has nothing to do with the requirements of the job, then what's the problem? And they go, oh yeah, we never thought of that. So we provide the women with mentors and coaches, even post-employment. Some women on the program have had an extensive work history, and then they make one mistake, like myself, and they've got a record, which sticks. It sticks beyond when you are leaving the prison gates. And then you've got women who may have had no work history, but they gained some skills in prison. So we build a resume from those skills, help them see these are skills that you've got, because a lot of them, you know, think, oh, I've never had a job. I'm not ever going to get a job. I don't have any skills. So it's helping the woman see what she has got, and that this offence should not define the rest of her life. It is, I always say to them, it is something that happened. It is not you. And I say that over and over again, because unless they start believing it themselves, as I said, those thoughts are really powerful. You know, how do you expect for anyone's behaviours to change if they're thinking, you know, that they're not worth it? So we've had about over 90 women touch base with the program. About a third of those disengaged because the reasons we found, they have not secured housing. And I think I mentioned to you early last week when we first spoke, in 2019, 900 women were released from prison to homelessness.
Wow. Oh, wow.
So it breaks my heart. You know, they're on a Centrelink payment. If it's New Start or Job Seeker, they're told they have to apply for X amount of jobs as their mutual obligation. Try doing that with a criminal record. Every time, I remember it took me 2 years to get some meaningful employment. Every time I applied for a job, I would see the, do you consent to a criminal record check? And I just go, oh my God, I don't want to have to explain this. The fear, the wall just went back up.
The shame.
And what that,
the shame.
The shame.
Yeah.
The shame. Like, it's one thing to be ashamed and learn from the offence and learn the thought patterns or unlearn, and then admit guilt and pay the price. That's a different kind of shame to continually living in shame. And what that does every time, you know, an organisation asks for a criminal record check without any further explanation, or to give you the opportunity for a safe space to voice your story, all that does is help you look backwards, not forwards. So, you know, you're released from prison and told, you know, get on with it, contribute to the community, pay your bills. You're going to let me do that?
Yeah, but how? Exactly how? And you can't get assistance because the requirements, they keep moving the goalpost, right? And they make it harder and harder as well.
Yeah. And for the women looking for housing, and I only learnt this last month from one of my clients who is in temporary housing, to get a more permanent housing, she has to now apply for 20 accommodations a month.
Say that again.
And submit a diary of accommodation that she has gone to view and apply for.
20?
Yeah, something like 20 a month. And she's got to submit a diary. Some of these women don't have a car. They've got to get there on push bike or public transport. So if you get there late to the open for the inspection of that property, you go back down the list because you haven't completed your X amount of viewing. And they're making it harder and harder. So there's a real shortage of social housing.
Oh yes,
more,
especially I know especially in Sydney, but I mean yeah, all over.
So we're perpetuating this cycle.
And if you know, in the other thing too that we haven't really discussed, but what happens prior to an offense? What over the abuse, the economic situation. A lot. Let's also realize that a lot of women that are incarcerated on drug or maybe drunk driving type offenses, right? A drug offense, which is, it is a mental, it is something that needs to be dealt with psychologically and physically, but there is no threat to society per se, where, you know, they're going to harm, you know, a bunch of people. They're harming themselves.
Yeah.
But what gets them to that point, which is
that point, exactly.
It's to relieve the pain. Exactly.
Yeah. And, you know, it's all right to have detox and rehabilitation centres, but are they addressing the why that person started using in the first place? And I remember one of the first roles I got was post-release was facilitating groups. It was in a job provider where they had a high clientele of homeless ex-offenders. And there were a lot of men that I worked with. And I remember sitting around a table, and about 90% of the men around that table were homeless ex-offenders. And we talked about the drug use. And I said that exact thing. In your detox and your rehabs that you've been in and out of, have you ever addressed the why? And one man said, not once.
Wow.
So there seems to be like education and a change needed at all levels.
Yes.
And another thing which my psychologist found that your viewers might find interesting, that I didn't even know, having experienced this system, is she had to present to a whole lot of magistrates a couple of years ago on the impact of their sentencing on someone's life. And she had 3 people in mind, and I was one of those 3 that she referred to. And they sat back and they went, oh my gosh, we had no idea. And she explained to me it's because the police do not talk to community corrections to do a pre-sentence report. They do not talk to the psychologists you might be seeing. They do not talk to the magistrates. The lawyers don't talk to, the lawyers just talk to, they have to talk to, and everyone just does their own little job, but no one talks to each other. And there you are, your sentence is going to impact this person's life for the rest of their life.
And their children's lives as well.
And their children's lives.
Yeah.
I know a woman who was incarcerated for 8 days, and she lost her housing, partner took the children away, she lost everything for 8 days.
Unbelievable. Well,
yeah.
Believable.
Yeah.
So
it's just, yeah, it's horrific.
And there's also, because like the program that you are the manager of, the Success Works, which helps get women back into the workforce and giving them those tools that they need, but also the resources. There's also not a lot of funding for your program, or for right. This is like one program in like all of, I mean, it's the need is overwhelming.
Yeah.
But there's just not also, is it because, well, those are criminals, we're not going to fund that because they're criminals, we don't want to help them? Is that what it is?
It could be that. We have had funding from the Ian Potter and the Vincent Fairfax Foundations for this program, and that funding runs out in December this year. So that has not been government funding, it's philanthropic funding. But I think to have 44 women that have participated in the program up to April this year have gained employment.
Wow.
If you do the math, I'm so excited. I'm so proud of that. And I'm so proud of those women who stuck to it and turned up every single time and did something that may have been completely different to anything they've done before, to go to an interview even, and, one lady, when she first got a job, it was the first legal job that she'd had for many years. And she emailed me and said, it was the first year I was able to buy Christmas presents for my kids.
Oh.
And so I'm going to cry because it gets me every time. Or, to say that she was able to buy herself some clothes, or we provide clothing, but, just the ability to do something that makes them feel good about themselves, even going to having a resume, if they've never had one before, they suddenly feel some hope and they feel good about themselves. And then when you teach them how to answer certain interview questions, particularly around the offending, if they're going to be asked that, how do you address that without, spilling your whole story, but just giving enough detail of say, yes, this is what happened. This is the price I paid. This is what I'm doing. This is what I've done since to address it. And this is what I want to do now. And for people to have the heart to listen, the ears, sorry, to listen with their heart and not to judge. And there have been fantastic organisations that have gone, yep, we get this. And they do their risk assessment and they go, yep, we're going to give this woman the job. And that was me. That's what I experienced with Megan Etheridge, the founder of Dress for Success. You know, I met with her and she said before the funding was secured, and she said, what's your interest in helping women with a record move forward? I said, I am one of those women and I know how hard it is. And because I wasn't applying for a job, I wasn't scared to say it. But you shouldn't be scared to say it. No. We're done living with fear. We had, you know, years of it prior to offending, then you're frightened in prison, and you shouldn't be frightened coming out.
No. And you should be supported. And you should be supported when you come out. That's why I love the organization. I think everybody should know about it. In fact, for our listeners and our viewers who are interested in supporting the work that you do, I want to encourage them we're going to put the link that they can go to. They can learn all about the program, and perhaps maybe they know of someone who needs this type of service and they're just unaware of it. They can send that link to them, but also really this is my request of listeners and viewers who have the ability to also support it financially in any way that you can. I encourage you to click that link. It'll be in the show notes, and make your donation to this really important organization and the work that you do. Because if there is no funding, and there is no government funding for this, which there should be, I can't. I'm like, I can't imagine. You know, we fund, you know, the coal industry. We fund, you know, sending Olympic athletes over here and there and all that. But something as important as this, and that affects this many lives, it should be supported. It should be funded. And also if you're a politician listening to this, then you need to get your act together and start funding Success Works.
Yes, please.
And also for those people that are, you know, around the world, because the show is listened to people, you know, all around the world. If you're in an area where this type of program is needed, reach out to Eleni as well, and maybe you can start an organization as well. Or if you've been through the process and you've been through the system and incarcerated, and now you want to turn your life around and help others, you know, those are the people who have been on the inside and who have felt the pain and the shame and all of that.
It's constant.
But those are the people that can help those that are coming out, right?
Yes. Yep. Exactly.
Absolutely. Well, Eleni, I would just want to thank you so much for being with us today and sharing your story and being vulnerable and open, but also for the amazing work that you do every single day. I know you, as soon as you wake up, as soon as your eyes waking up, you're on it. But thank you so much. And you're welcome back to come on Out of the Box with Christine anytime. You give us updates, let us know what's going on. Please, the door is always open to you.
I just even thought of the stuff we didn't talk about, what happened in prison that causes further trauma, but that can be another episode.
Well, you know what? No, we can. No, we should address this. I think because, and I was going to go there, and then I thought I didn't want to trigger you as well.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
But yeah, it's not. You know, here's the thing, because again, society has this idea that if you're in prison, you deserved it. You're a threat to humanity. You deserve to eat on the cold hard floor and get what you get. But you are locked in, and not only are you locked in with other people who have been incarcerated and come from all different walks of life. There's gangs, there's all kinds of things, but also the actual people that are paid to look after you, so to speak, right? Talk about that real quickly.
So some of the practices within New South Wales prisons are after every single visit, you are strip searched. A woman is strip searched. I was also told one time, they said, if you've got your period, make sure the tampon string is not showing. And I went, why? They said, because if you strip shirts and they see the string, you have to pull that out to make sure that you are not smuggling drugs in. So I never got used to the strip searches. If the dog squad came through your cell at, say, 4:30 in the morning, which they did, I experienced that once in the 11 months I was in. The strip search is video recorded with a camera on the floor, and you have to lift your leg to the camera. And I sat there having to go through it because I had to, wondering who the hell is going to be watching this. And, you know, for someone who her whole life thought her worth, and I'm speaking for myself, other women who have gone through sexual abuse and have to go through that strip search, I can't imagine. But for someone who always believed that it was sex that she was valued for, just that, I never got used to, even if it was, no matter who did it, no matter if it was the nicest officer, I never got used to that. That's one of the
videotaping, and that is absolutely like shattering to someone's soul. And especially if it's and look, you know, we could pretend, but most women have been sexually abused, assaulted. There has been something that has happened to them. Yeah. And to have them become a victim again in that situation and have it be filmed is absolutely, that's a nightmare. That would be one of my worst nightmares.
You don't know it's going, I never experienced it. That one time it did. So you just get told what you have to do, and then you're there and you see the camera on the floor, and you know, it's not even like an informed thing. It was like, oh, geez, you know, no.
And
so that was one of them.
And of course, we've heard of abuse from the officers, the correctional officers as well.
There's been a number of cases.
Have you heard stories when you were there? Did you hear stories from women that were there with you?
You heard stories. You heard lots of stories, whether they were confirmed or not. But since being out and seeing it in the papers, and you know, the court process going through for those correctional officers now, it happened.
Oh my God. So again, they are abused, they are harmed while they're there, and then when they're let go, they're like, have a great life.
Yeah.
Good luck.
And they were just a couple of examples I gave on top of being locked up, you know, 23 hours a day or 18 hours a day, depending on what part of the prison you're in. And, you know, working a 40-hour week for $50 a week to serve corrective services industries. You know what I mean? It's...
Oh, that we didn't even get into that. That's right.
Yeah.
So you're creating goods, or what is it that a lot of the people have to do, the women have to do?
There's a range of industries depending on what prison in New South Wales you're in, and depending if it's a male or female prison. I worked in a warehouse where I learned warehousing skills that I was grateful for, but for about a 48-hour week, I might have got $52 for the week. You know, other prisons have industries where they make soft furnishings for organisations on the outside, or sheets, or, you know, a lot of the gowns, hospital gowns, you know, CSI have industries. You can have a look on their website, CSI Industries.
Wow. So it is a business, and they have cheap labor.
Yeah.
Well, they have a captive labor market, don't they, as well?
Yeah. I get that they might be teaching people skills, but
if you're going to go out and become a gown maker?
Yep. And I guarantee those organisations will do a criminal record check when they're out and not give them
Exactly.
employment.
Oh my God. Oh my God. We have to change. We have to change
Yeah,
this.
so much to change.
Well, so I'm gonna reiterate with that people can learn more about your organization by going to the link that we'll be providing in the show notes. Also, and it's everything from with Dress for Success, the parent organization, right? Which helps women it feel good on the outside as well, because a lot of times you don't have resources to go out and look for a job, you know, to have a nice outfit, to feel good about yourself as well.
Yeah.
But so we have that, but also you have all of those support mechanisms, helping women with creating that resume and getting them help and assistance in speaking with a potential employer. And
Yeah.
if there's employers who want
Yes.
to be a part of your wonderful organization and give women a second chance in life, and
Yeah.
their families and the children and their
Yes,
community,
please.
right? Because it's a ripple effect. That's what happens. It's a ripple effect. They can reach out to you as well through that link. Yes?
They sure can.
Awesome. Awesome. Eleni, I want to thank you so very much. And again, you're welcome back anytime. It's been my honor to have you on. And I hope that we've changed some people's minds and opinions about incarceration, and especially with women being incarcerated, and what it's really like, and how everybody deserves another chance. Everybody deserves
Thank you.
another chance.
We sure do. Everyone. Everyone does.
Thank you,
Thank you
darling.
so much.
And I want to thank you, wonderful listeners and viewers. You can watch this video on YouTube. And if you are watching it right now, make sure that you like and subscribe. You can subscribe by clicking the bell. Click that little bell that's over here on YouTube. And if you're listening to this for the first time in an audio format, please make sure you subscribe to your audio podcast platform. For more information on the show, you can go to outoftheboxwithchristine.com. Until next time, remember to always think outside of that damn, not only box, but cage. Think out of that cage as well.
Yeah.
Thank you, darling. Thank you so much. Bye
Thanks,
for now.
Christine.
Bye, love.
Bye.